Don't forget about your dynamics. Today I'm going to put the spotlight on the easiest, the most powerful, and the most overlooked skill among guitar players. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to this episode of the Play Guitar Podcast. I am Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitar player that you always wanted to be. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. Hey, if you are new here, welcome. This is a place to feel good about yourself, feel empowered that you can get better, and it's a place that makes you think. We're going to make you think about what you're really doing with the guitar and whether your efforts are getting the results that they deserve. Way back, it was a while ago, back on episode 51, I introduced dynamics. And we started talking about, it was more about using pedals and those things and getting your gain stages together, using gain and volume for electric guitar players. And then as I've looked over the vast amount of topics that we've accrued over the years, dynamics is not really there a whole lot. It's very underrepresented. There's so much about what we do as guitar players that people who don't play the guitar, there's so much that they can't understand. But we are playing for them. We're not just playing for guitar players. We're playing for everyone. So if you find anything that communicates well to non-musicians, this is something you need to pay attention to. It's extremely important. For example, rhythm. We all understand rhythm at its basic level. We have heartbeats, right? So from the moment you're born till now, we've been having this heartbeat going. We understand tempo. We get excited, it speeds up. We rest, it slows down. So we understand that as well. Tempo, speed, things that go faster, things that go slower. These are things we all, no matter if you play music or not, we all understand. Pitch. We can all tell the difference between something that sounds very high and something that sounds very low. We may not be able to put our finger on what that note is, but we know the difference between those things. This is something we can use. Tone. We can all tell the difference between tones. Anyone can tell you the difference between a heavy metal band and then a jazz combo. They sound completely different. But the big one that everyone deals with is dynamics. Loud sounds versus soft sounds and everything in between. Dynamics speak to us. They tell us things. They speak to us in ways that we can't even figure out, that we can't even put our finger on. When a song builds to a place that you didn't think it was going to go, it can make you feel a lot of different things. It can be overwhelming. It can make you feel euphoric. It can be inspiring feeling, or it can be crushing. I don't know about you, but there's something that I can do, something I can practice so that I can make things that are overwhelming or euphoric or inspiring. Or, I just want to know how to do that. And I want to know now. That's something I need to do. So we're going to take that next step today from, episode 51, and see how you can add an element of dynamics to your playing in many different ways. And it'll add depth and excitement to everything you do as a guitar player. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a dynamics primer. What are dynamics? If you're not familiar with this, it's super easy. It's very simple. Dynamics in music, it's the variation, loudness, volume, intensity, where a piece of music starts one place and goes to another place. But another thing that I'm going to talk about today is tone as well too. Tone comes into play when just from picking strength. What does your loudest sound like compared to your quietest sound? In recording, this is something that you deal with a little bit more than just playing alone in your room. So you can make a guitar, you can compress a guitar track and make the loudest sounds and the quietest sounds pretty similar. But why does one still sound louder than the other? The tone of it. You can just try this yourself. Take a voice recorder on your phone and just press record and play something very loud on your guitar and then very quiet on your guitar. Listen to the difference. Listen to the highs and listen to the lows. You're going to hear something different. And you could, like I said, you could make the small parts louder inside the computer, inside your voice recorder. But the tones are different too. So those are the things that are going to affect the dynamics in your playing. There's a lot of different parts to dynamics too when it comes to music. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's talk about how dynamics is communicated. If you look at standard notation, which a lot of guitar players don't, but you've probably taken a look in a sheet of music every once in a while, and you might see some little letters here and there, P and F, right? So you'll see P over one section and a little F over another section. P means piano, it means quiet. F means forte, that's loud, right? And so you'd say, okay, this is where I'll play this part quietly, and I'll play this part loudly. And it even gets even more descriptive than that. So sometimes you'll see an MP in front of that. So M stands for mezzo, which means moderately quiet. So you're kind of in the almost to quiet there. Mezzo piano or mezzo forte, that would be moderately loud. You're on the way to being loud. Sometimes you'll see two P's together or two F's together, right? That means very much. Sometimes three P's, three F's together. So the more you add those on, the more super loud that you're going to get, or super quiet like that. The other words that you'll see is crescendo, right? That's growing in intensity, growing in your dynamics. You start at one place and you end up more. Decrescendo, excuse me for that. That'd be decreasing in your dynamics as well too. So how about the importance of dynamics in music, right? Dynamics is expressiveness. This is an easy way to express yourself, express your emotions. They allow musicians to convey a lot of different things in their performances. You can do subtle things, just go from soft to a little bit louder like that. You can express feelings such as intimacy, excitement. You can do things that are sad just by messing with the dynamics. Also very intense. You can ramp up really quickly, then back off. All of these little things that you do can really get across something that you're trying to get across by searching for notes. That sounds a little bit sad, right? But what if I used a little bit more dynamics and didn't even use all of those notes? To me, that's much sadder. I only used 3 notes there, really hung on one note at the time. But I was very soft in the way that I picked that note. And then I would go up and down a little bit, to kind of rise and fall, but end up getting quieter as I descended the scale. So this is like a B minor from minor third to second to root. Those are the only 3 notes that I used in that second one there. So using those dynamics, I can convey something that maybe I couldn't find by note choice. Speaking of note choices, let's move on to something called phrasing. Dynamics in phrasing. It provides an ebb and a flow to the music. It helps shape phrases. You can play the same thing 3 times and use 3 different dynamics. The first time loud, the second time medium, the third time have a crescendo, go up in volume, and it will mean 3 different things, even though you're using the same notes. It creates a sense of movement. It can also create a sense of tension. The other thing dynamics can do is can help you tell a story. They play a crucial role in telling a musical story. Changes in volume can signify a whole section. Choruses are loud, verses are medium, the bridge is quiet. It can tell you a transition is going to come up, especially like drum fills. You hear a very loud drum fill that's building. You know something's about to come up. It can resolve things. It can guide the listener through a story by how loud or how quiet each section is. And that's highlighting the structure of the song. How about instrumental balance, the dynamics between the instruments? This is essential for getting a good group sound and being able to hear different instruments. If one is overpowering everything else, you can't figure that out. So as one instrument might go up, the other ones might follow along. And these dynamics, paying attention to dynamics in a group, ensures that no instrument overwhelms the others, creates a cohesive and a harmonious sound, and you're going to make sure that everything that you play is interesting. It's just not either muddy or it's not overbearing. This variety to a musical performance is going to prevent people from getting bored. We love repetition. We love things to go over and over again, play the same part over and over and over again, but at some point it gets monotonous. And using dynamics can keep a repetitive portion of a song interesting, soft and loud passages. It's captivating. It keeps you going, even though you're listening to a repetitive song. How about dynamics when you're performing with another instrument? Say there's two instruments. Maybe you're both doing an improv like a call and response, or maybe it's a written out piece for two instruments. How can you make this interesting? You can use dynamics. One might get louder while the other one gets quieter, or they could follow each other. Or maybe one would have a really intense lick or melody, where the other one would cool that down with something that's a little bit more mellow or quieter, like that. This can be very, very interesting and create, especially if it's something you've played a million times. Mess around with the dynamics and you get a whole new take on the piece than just playing it straight every single time. And just on your own playing as well, expressing yourself. Dynamics provide you with a means of personal expression. You can do controlled variations in volume. You can, we're not just all happy and all sad. There's a lot of gray area in between. And dynamics is something where, you play a major chord, and there's nothing happier than that on the guitar. C major, right? Or you play a minor chord, C minor. There's nothing sadder than the minor chord. Happy and sad. And we as people are not always extremely happy and extremely sad. There's a lot of gray area in between. So using dynamics can kind of take us into that gray area and really allow us to express ourselves as we're playing pieces of music that may not have that in them. You may add your own performance to that song. Another way that dynamics can add a ton of musicianship to your playing is with range and contrast as well too. How much is the dynamic range? How much is the difference between your softest sound and your loudest sound? This can contribute to the impact of a musical work. You can create more drama. You can engage people more. Say if your loudest part of the song, you decide to go for it and go super loud, and then your quietest is super quiet. How far are you going to go with your dynamics? That will create a bigger impact in your song. Or you might decide this is more like a driving music song, something that's kind of medium, doesn't have tons of dynamics. It just kind of rolls along. Depending on the song, hey, you might pick one or the other, or the next day play it differently because you're feeling it that day. And the last thing, which we're going to talk a little bit about in the next section, is kind of aesthetics, right? So even in a certain lick or a certain melody, using dynamics for just one or two notes that are well-placed, soft or loud moments. This can enhance any melody or any lick and elevate it beyond just being a good sounding piece of music. It can be personal. It can really touch the lives of people who are listening to you. Let's talk about using the pick a little bit. So in all my coaching students, when we first come in, we talk about holding the pick and best practices for that. And I'm not going to go through all that. But one of the things is we talk about having a loose grip on the pick, just holding it just enough so it doesn't fly across the room. And the reason that is because we want to have control over this. If you hold the pick tightly, it's going to give a very sharp sound, and it's going to push the strings a little bit. They're going to sound a little out of tune if you're just really clamping down on the pick all the time. So keeping it loose like this allows you to play something quiet just by letting up between your first finger and your thumb. Or the harder you hold the pick, did you hear the tone change right there? That was a medium grip. Now I'm going to do a heavy grip. I'm not striking the strings any harder. Only thing that's changing is how tight I'm holding the pick right there. So just playing through those notes. Sometimes I'm really clamping down on the pick, and other times I'm letting it loose, and you hear the difference between those notes. And that can get super expressive. So for that, all I was doing was adding a little bit of force to some of the notes. So I had the grip going between my first finger and my thumb. I was tightening and loosening that. And then also some notes, I was hitting them physically harder than the other ones. And all sorts of different variations would come out, and you get a very, very expressive sound. You can also explore dynamics in the pick itself. How thick of a pick that you use. This is a 1.0 millimeter pick. It's the one I typically use. It's on the side of a heavy pick, but you can still bend the pick a little bit. It's not so heavy that it's not bendable there. So I like that. It's kind of a middle of the road pick for me with single notes. But if I'm recording acoustic guitar, I'll use a much lighter pick. I want some more of that slappier sound. That's where you get high end, but not as much bass. You get a little bit of a thunk when you hear those things. And that gives another impression of kind of a middle of the road sound with acoustic guitar. How about variations with your instrument? How about steel strings versus nylon strings? If you've ever played a guitar with nylon strings, a classical style guitar, whether you use your fingers or use a pick on those, it's not going to have the volume that a steel string guitar has. It's just not in that. So if you want something with a softer sound, maybe that's one way that you can go about using dynamics, is switching the instrument up to something that has a softer sound. One of the things that I like to do in my picking is I like to angle my pick a lot. And I find that this really helps with dynamics as well too. How I started doing this was angling the pick for speed. So I would usually play the pick, and it would be I'd use the pointy tip on the pick and the flat side, because that gave me the warmest, roundest sound. But I noticed that I could only play so fast. And you hear that, I start to get clicks, you start to miss notes, those things, because you have a lot of surface area on the flat side of the pick, and then you have a very long plane along the string, right? So you get some extra friction in there. So what I started doing is I started angling my pick down towards the floor, pointing my thumb down a little bit so that the edge, the side of the pick, is hitting the strings, not the whole flat part. And I found, especially when switching strings, I would get a much more accurate response when I wanted to play fast. So I got in the habit of, when I'm playing slow, using the flat side of the pick, but when I'm playing fast, angling down to get that edge. But it also gave a sharper sound. So sometimes I will use that to get that sharp sound for dynamic. And I find it really, really helps with expression as I'm creating different improv pieces or playing different melodies. You can also use different types of picks to get softer or sharper sounds, or picks that will pick louder or quieter. I have these picks that I use with my jazz guitar, very thick picks, and they have a beveled edge on the side. Or actually, I think it's a rounded edge, not just I think beveled is kind of at an angle. This is rounded on each side. And listen to the difference here. Back to my regular pick. You can hear a different attack, which gives the impression of a louder sound or a more quiet sound. And also, in the way you pick, it can affect your dynamics too. Alternate picking is usually how I go. It gives a nice even sound. Sweep picking gives you a sense of movement, still being even and still being able to hear each note. Legato, where you're not picking every single note, this is going to give it a softer, a smoother sound, and it's going to bring things down a little bit so you can explore the softer side of your dynamics. If we talk about finger style guitar a little bit too, finger strength, get rid of the pick, being able to move across strings smoothly or quietly or in a loud way is going to take some practice to build up to that. String by string control is very important. Palm muting when you're playing too, making sure that other strings don't ring out and you can play like a pizzicato type sound. Your thumb on fingerstyle too. So different types of strength in the thumb, but also thumb picks. Getting a sharper sound is going to bring it to the front. It's going to make it sound louder, a quieter sound. Practicing playing quietly too. How about pulling string? When you use your finger to pull a string up, you're adding something to the note. You're adding that smack when the string comes back to the fretboard, right? That sounds like a higher end of your dynamics there. That's going to give a louder, kind of more in-your-face type sound. The chicken picking guys, they do a lot of this kind of stuff where they'll be playing a line and pull a note where it just kind of features that note and brings it out there. And that's that articulation. You can take one or two notes and add some dynamics to those that aren't in the other notes and to really bring them to the forefront. I was going to talk about some techniques too with electronics as well. We're kind of getting on later in the show here, so I may not go into that today, but John Scofield does it. Really neat thing where he'll use a chorus pedal just for certain notes. And just changing that tone. And a lot of times the chorus pedal is a little bit louder than everything else. So even if he's playing at an even tempo, when he kicks that pedal in just for one or two notes, it features that note and it brings them up in volume and adds some really, really interesting dynamic things to it. I think we'll save that for another episode, though. It's really cool stuff. Make sure this week you consider it Dynamics Week. Pay attention to how loud you're playing, how quiet you're playing. Take control of it. In a certain line, maybe take one or two of the notes and either soften them up or make them a little bit louder. See what it does for the expression. Is this an expression that you want to get across there? Start to harness the power of dynamics. It's going to make your musicianship just go straight through the roof. And if you like to really find out how you're doing on guitar to help unlock your full guitar potential, I've got something for you. It's my Guitar High Performance Scorecard. It's super easy. It's a page that you can fill out in 15 minutes. It's designed to assess your skills, identify the areas for growth that you need, and it's going to track your progress along the way. And it's for free for you. I highly suggest you get it. I use it with all my new coaching students. It's a wonderful tool, and it will show you the things you need to work on now to bring everything up to a level where then you can start to move forward at a quick rate. It's in the show notes. But you can get it over at playguitaracademy.com, High Performance Guitar Scorecard. And I'm going to call it That's a Wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you have benefited from this podcast, please leave a favorable review over on Apple Podcasts. It's going to really help, and I sure appreciate it. And if more help, structure, and results in your guitar playing sound good to you, become a member over at the Academy. Join us every Wednesday. We get together at 5 p.m. Eastern. I have a Q&A over there, but we have a lot of fun just hanging out and talking guitar and talking about all the wins and losses that we've had throughout the week. I can't wait to see you over there, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.